Councilman Ferrari. Here. Waldorf. Macocious. Here. Radke. Here. Sapienza. Payton. Ballard. Here. Buffo. Here. Mayor Harrell.
Here, would everybody rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Bartley, did anybody fill out a public comment card?
I don't believe there's any public comment notice tonight.
Okay. So we have a presentation from Basali, Kerry, Alstad, and MWL Architects for the proposed Peru Police Station. I'll go ahead and leave this podium and the mic, and it's all yours.
We have Matt Lamps and Angela Calsto from Basali, Kerry, and Dean Roberts is from MWL. They're our architects for the project. Dean, Matt, and Angela will be leading tonight's presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction, Eric. We're here this evening to provide the council with a brief presentation and update on the Phase 1 pre-design programming for the new City of Peru Police Station. As a design team, we are finalizing the Phase 1 pre-design and conceptual planning at this stage. So with that, tonight we're going to have an overview of the pre-design programming process, explain that to the council a little bit. There's some blocking diagrams that we'll go through in the presentation, and also a preliminary site plan. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dean, and
thanks, Matt.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'd just like to share the audience, and of course the council is our main audience here, I think. So anyway, we just really, as Matt said, we want to walk through some of the work we've been doing. And I think it's important to think about the process that we've been going through. My firm, McLaren Wilson Lowry, we go by MWL. All we do are public safety buildings, so far 44 states. So we would always partner with someone in the community, another architect, because we think that two heads are better than one. So that's how we set up the team, and we bring a lot of experience with this project type. So one of the things that we learn from experience is how to go through a process that gives you a really high likelihood of a successful outcome. So, next slide. So the first thing that we recognize that even though we've done lots of these kind of projects, we've never done two that are the same. So our first job is to become familiar with this community, and the way we think about it, everybody, of course, wants to know how much is this building going to cost. But before we can really credibly answer that, we go back and we ask the question, what's unique about this community? Because what's unique about this community is what generates the calls for service. The calls for service are really the workload of the police. You know, like my dad used to say, tell me how much work there is and I'll tell you how many people we need to get it done. And so the workload is really a matter of being able to respond to calls for service. But the biggest driver of space needs is the people that work in the building and the tasks they do. That's what drives the space. We just really want to give them the building space they need. So once we know the staffing that is required to get the work done, now we can begin to credibly assign space to that. And then we want to say, well, where are we going to put this building? That's one of the big questions. And the city has been moving forward in that process already. And there's a site that's been identified. So once we know the site, we know the building size, we know the number of people we need to accommodate, now we can begin to bring forward an initial concept, and if that is accepted by the council, then we'll go back and we'll assign the numbers. We haven't done that yet. So, next slide. So that's our process that we go through. Here's a more graphic. This pre-design process really sets the project up for success. It's the foundation on which the design is based. So we're just doing concepts so that we can get an idea, answer the three critical questions. You know, how big a building do we need? What site is it going to go on? What that's already been determined. And then once we know those things, then we can begin to do the cost estimate. So we tried to think about what are the critical success factors. You know, let's all agree on how we're going to measure success. We have developed this process, this methodology, where we develop questionnaires for the police staff to fill out. So we have a diverse number of questionnaires that we ask to gather information, And it's really, you know, the investigations unit is a different duty assignment than patrol, and then there's evidence storage, and then there's all these different components of the police department. So the questionnaires help us to gain that information from the chief and his staff's perspective. Then we want to sit down with those folks and talk to them. We think more we can listen to what they are saying and understand the space they're working in now and where that might have shortfalls, then we can begin to come to a clear understanding. We apply some space standards. You know, whether you're doing a building for the Peru PD or the Chicago PD, an interview room where you interview suspects is the same size. So there are applicable space standards that we use. So we go through this process. It's called the space needs process. We gather a lot of data. We analyze that data. We arrive at a space needs assessment. Here's how much space we need. Here's the answer, backed up with a lot of facts as to why we need this building of this size. And then once we know that space, then we can begin to do what we call block diagrams or adjacency diagrams. So that's the process that where we are right now. And so we'll just show you some of those diagrams that we've developed. So this is a building footprint, we call it, that begins to approximate the size of the facility that we need. And the front door is in this position with some parking to serve the visitors of the building. Off the public lobby, we're thinking about a community training room. And this is an idea that we're seeing in virtually every police department we're doing these days. And I didn't mention it, but it's important to mention that in the process, we went and visited example facilities in other communities. We can learn from what other communities have done and make better decisions about how to do the building for this community. So, you know, off the public access area, there's a records counter, there's the access to the community room, and really that's as far as the visitors come unless they're escorted by the police staff to the rest of the building. So the public enters here with the parking here. The staff, on the other hand, parks on this side of the building, enters the other side of the building, and now we've got space allocated for lockers area, for the patrol division, for the administration division, for the detectives. Property and evidence is a growing need that every police department is trying to deal with. You know, there's legislative requirements to hold more evidence for a longer period of time, and it's really driving a significant need of space. And then this piece of the building down here is for what we call the arrestee processing. Nobody wants to go there, right? So, but that's the police department's duty, is to handle the people that do need to go there. So each of these has a certain adjacency to give efficiency and effectiveness for the police department. We wouldn't necessarily want the arrestee processing by the public lobby. Really, the people that are going to work with those folks are the patrol folks and the detectives. So the adjacencies really matter to help folks set themselves up for efficiency and effectiveness. So that's kind of the overall, and if you have questions, we can get to that. We've just got a couple more slides, and then we're really ready. Okay, so then you might say, how does that fit on the site? So if we take that footprint that you saw on the previous site, we place it on the site. This is a site along Peoria Street and Midtown Road at this corner. And that's the property that this is located on. So one of the key things is to get an understanding is how's this thing going to fit on the site? How can we accommodate the parking? How can we set up the secure parking and the public parking? And then position the building in a way that allows this to operate efficient and effectively. So this is the overall, you can see that footprint without all the detail inside, the public parking on this side of the building, the staff parking here. We're thinking that there's an access point here that's primarily staff-wise and an access point to the site here that gets to the public parking area. And of course, there's a link between the two. So that's the overall layout of the facility as we begun to position it on the site. Is that our last slide? All right. So at that point, I'd just like to invite what questions that the council may have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Access from 28th Street versus Midtown Road. Smaller access point coming and going from
Right, we were thinking that the better plan is to not put a direct access off of Midtown or Peoria. So secondarily, then, this 26th Street is where the thought was a more favorable place. Now you're getting out of the higher flow of traffic to access the building.
Dave, I can add to that. So, with some of the future capital improvement plans that we have planned in the city with the widening of North Peoria and eventually the extension of Midtown Road to Plank, you can see there clearly depicted we're adding some turn lanes. So in those situations where the turn lane is, we need to limit access because we'll have vehicles stacking or vehicles are in a stationary position. We wouldn't want public trying to cross those multiple lanes or PD in a lights on situation try to cross. So we're really controlling the access from that standpoint that, from a traffic flow standpoint.
So the fact that it's not busier is a good thing.
Exactly.
Okay, understood.
And the intent is from, the staff side of the building, to highlight on that, when PD would leave the building in an emergency situation, they will exit directly to the north to Midtown to a main boulevard. So they wouldn't backtrack through residential 26th Street. They'd go right to the main boulevard, left to Plank, right to North Peoria.
Okay.
Do we have sizes in there, all that figured out already, or is this just preliminary?
This is very preliminary. This is our first shot at, after we've finished, as Dean highlighted, some of the space needs of the building. Now we're starting to piece those footprints together. The next step is going to be us looking at going to that phase 2 schematic design that I've talked about, and we have yet to decide on when and how we're going to do that.
Eric, when you say we, can you explain who's on the whole concept team, how that comes together?
Yes, so I should probably move back up here. So, obviously, myself, the city engineer, and the architects, we selected some time ago, what's back in November of 2017?
17, yes, you're correct.
So we had sent out, we knew prior to that, we had an assessment done of our existing facility. Obviously, conditions there are poor in nature, and there's really not much that we can do with that facility in the form of renovations. So we started this endeavor of looking at how do we bring an architect on board to start looking at a new building. So we went through a process where we had 16 firms submit to the city their interests and qualifications. We finished that process, ultimately landing with the Salt Lake Terry and MWL as our architects. And then we had a short-term venture in looking at shared facility with other municipalities, which then has brought us back to today looking at strictly the Peru Police facility. So the group that's been put together on just the Peru Police facility is myself, the architects, Chief Burnaby. We've had 2 members of the council and a member from each of the internal divisions within the police department. So we've been receiving a lot of great feedback from the team. We've been doing, as Dean highlighted, we did some tours of other municipal police stations that have recently been constructed, so that we can get a feel for, what does the city of Peru need, what do we want, what are things that other communities that are doing that we may not necessarily have understood or thought of. So all of that has been beneficial to us. In doing all that, it takes time to create this. And, the architects obviously have taken all of that data as Dean said and created this conceptual plan. Tonight, the purpose is to roll out, all of that work that's been done to get to this conceptual plan for the mayor and city council and public to understand, what does this vision look like now? And we're getting prepared to go to the next step. The next step is, executing contracts to try to get to and through schematic design where we can really understand on the budget for the facility. And then once that budget's understood, the final step is, do we take it to construction? We're not there yet. We obviously don't have any numbers to share yet. Tonight really is just strictly, what is this building generally going to look like and where are we going to put it? And highlight, the work of not only the chief, but all of the staff and all the extra time that they've put in helping us understand what their needs are. So hopefully, in a few months' time, we'll start to come back to you with progress drawings of the building from a schematic standpoint. And then months down the road, we're gonna understand how much this thing will cost from a budget standpoint. And once that budget's understood, I'll be working directly with Justin Miller to understand how do we finance a project like this, and bring that before the city council to make the ultimate decision.
Anybody from the audience? Anybody from the audience or any of the officers that, anybody? Mike?
The only question I have is why you're not having an access to Midtown. If you look at that drawing, if the squad car is in the back side there, he's gonna make two rights, go up Plank Road, which is heavily used, instead of having an easy access to get to 251/80. That was my only, that was my only question right there, because there is no real easy way there. He's either gonna make two rights, or he's gonna come out and he's gonna make a right, a left, and then he's gonna make another one in order to get onto Peoria Street, which is time down.
So you can imagine in a, lights on emergency situation, my personal opinion, professional opinion, that you're better well controlled going to the intersection rather than, you can see up there Midtown, we're gonna have two back-to-back turns that are stacked. So a turn lane to go on to Peoria and a turn lane to come south. So the potential for stacking there in vehicles in a stock condition, we don't want to introduce a police vehicle in an emergency situation trying to navigate through those vehicles across multiple lanes. Where when they come out on a much lower volume ADP road in the new north-south road, probably ADP of less than 100, compared to thousands of vehicles that could be traveling Midtown Road on a daily average. We'll bring them out there into a controlled intersection where they can get left and right pretty quickly. And once they get left or right on Midtown, now they're free. So the real concern comes with the stationary vehicles in the turn lanes.
But right now, what's daily traffic on Route 6? Because, you're taking a right out of the parking lot there, and you're taking a right or a left to go either direction on Route 6. That's over 10,000.
It's around 13,000.
Right, so, it is quite a bit less, Mike, just looking at it that way. Because we don't know what Midtown Road daily traffic will be, because it's not there
We
yet.
obviously know that one of the largest generators of traffic is IV, and IV generates a lot of traffic that we anticipate will continue to push across Midtown. So that traffic volume will probably be recognized all the way across.
Chief Murray, I don't know if you'd have an answer, but what is the total percentage of calls that their officers would respond from the police department versus officers are already deployed and would respond to the call from somewhere in the field?
I don't have the exact statistics, but statistically, they're not at the station when the calls for emergencies come in. They're out on patrol, so, it does happen, Today we had an emergency in Spring Valley, many of us left from the station, but 3 of the cars were out on patrol for left. So in normal circumstances, in a perfect world, they're not at the police station, they're out in their zones working the street, but, so it's hard to say. I'd say the overwhelming majority, they're out on the street.
It's a secure parking lot for staff. Is that secured with like a fence or some kind of gate that they're gonna have to navigate to get out of?
Their gates and their, you can describe it,
Gates
some, their,
the quick open
Public
that we
safety
saw.
Right, like every facility we toured, there's essentially a perimeter fence around the secure lot and gates. And there's different styles of gates. Some of them are gonna open more quickly than others. And, what we would, I think, all land on is one that minimizes the time to open the gate, so that in the instance where there is an emergency response, it's not delayed by a gate.
We saw a few of those in operation when we took the tour, and
So where would those,
I will say they're
that road, on the drive on the south would be open?
So we're thinking there's a gate here, and the fence kinda, it comes from the edge of the building around this way, there's a gate here, and then it wraps. So and then, actually, I'm sorry, it goes right here, and then there's a gate. So you don't have a massive amount of fence, because the building will serve as your security perimeter as well.
And one thing I should add, from a site location standpoint, obviously, the building will be proposed to be very aesthetically pleasing. We've got a new building, it's a government facility, and not only that, we do have some residential. We did plan some large areas to add buffer zones and, large landscapes and berms and things of that nature. Really caught my eyes when we went to North Aurora's police department. Had there not been a sign that said North Aurora Police, you probably would have had a hard time telling that it was a police department. Just because of the additional buffer and landscaping, the exterior look of the building, it was a pretty inviting community building.
And then
With the concept plans and from all the data that has been, gained from interviewing all the police, what size building, square footage wise, are we talking here?
Dean, do you have, or Matt, do you guys have the breakdown on that? I want to say it's, we're looking at 32, is that correct? And 8 or 9 was garage space?
Right, I think it's a little bit less than that, but yeah, that's the right range. It's in the 25 to 30 range, and that compares pretty equivalent with, so when we do these tours, the tours that we picked were with police departments of similar staff size and communities with similar population. You can't get two that are exactly the same, but we want to get something that's a good comparison. And so the North Aurora facility, for example, is 25,000 square feet. And we went to see one in Glen Ellen, that's about 31, 32, so that might be where you got that number. So we think that that's the zone that we need to be in, is right in that zone, the 25 to 30.
That's including the garage area?
The garage, I think Eric said, the garage is an addition to that. The other thing that we found, and we're seeing this everywhere we go, is it used to be that the cars all sat outside. But if you look at the cost of a car, not just the car itself, but all the equipment it has, there's a lot of dollars tied up in that. And in the extreme heat of the summer and the extreme cold or snow conditions of the winter, it's provable fact that those cars will last longer. And when you do need to, you're doing a shift change, you don't want that car to be sitting out there getting covered with snow or ice so that the officers can't respond. So we're finding that it's more and more common, based on the value of the cars and the equipment they have, and also their ability to respond quickly, to have a garage that the patrol vehicles are housed in. So yes, that is sorry, a long answer to your question, but that is in addition to the 25 to 30,000 square feet, would be a garage that we think is be able to accommodate approximately 15 vehicles.
Is that up there on that screen?
Yes, sir, it is. That's this leg of the building, if you will. So the idea is you want to situate that where, after the briefing is over and the patrol guys are going to their cars, it's a straight shot from where that briefing room is right here, and they basically go straight to the cars. And then at the end of the shift, it's the same thing in reverse.
So then at the bottom, is that where they bring the prisoners in though, in the bottom?
Correct. This is separate, and we intentionally don't want that garage function. There is a garage here, the vehicle Sally Port is a garage, a drive-through garage, but we wouldn't normally mix that with the patrol vehicle garage. You don't necessarily want prisoners to see all your vehicles and all your staff. That's just not a good security practice.
What's the size of the community room? Do you have a number on that?
It's set up to accommodate 32 people sitting at training tables. I don't remember the square footage, but I can get that for you. I just don't have that in my mind.
And every station that we visited, there was quite a bit of action in their community rooms, from community, not just police officers.
Yeah.
They were very busy.
We hear lots of reports, to your point, that the police that build these buildings, is they say, wow, these things are used all the time. And somebody may have thought originally that, gosh, that'll never get used. That is absolutely not the case.
This is a single-story building with like a full basement, or what?
Single stories, like slab on grade.
Slab on grade.
Is there room for expansion if the need be?
Yes, there's always room for expansion. I think that's a key point. I mean, that's part of the reason we like this simple L shape. We could expand the building, we could expand the garage, we could expand the building to come out this way. We have lots of room. We could wrap the building into, this is an L, we could wrap it into a U. So this shape kind of is simple enough to allow multiple options for expansion.
Dean, could you touch base on one of the things that I know I and all the officers were really liked what we saw, and you kind of incorporated in the concept about the prisoner pickup, where people come to pick up the folks and how we release the inmates as opposed to the public area. Could you touch that concept?
Sure, happy to. So one of the things that used to be common is that when somebody's being released that is in custody, they go to the public lobby. But, you know, the question that gets raised there is, what if mom and the kids are there for some other business-related thing? So there's several functional reasons like that we have begun separate. There's a separate place when right here, if somebody is released, and there are a lot of people that are released, they're here, they need to be processed, you fingerprint them, you photograph them, and then they don't have to be held, so they can be released for another time. And where does that happen? So we would like to think that that happens separate from the public lobby. And if somebody is here, like if I need to go pick up my brother-in-law, sorry, I'm telling you about my brother-in-law here, but anyway, you know, I've got a spot right here where I can do that. And then once we have that function, we can layer on other functions. The police department might pick up somebody's dog in the community and bring it back to the station and need to hold that temporarily in a cage. And then once they contact the person, guess where that person comes? They come to this same entry, and within this little garage, we've got a spot to hold their dog or their cat until they can come get it. And then there's another thing too, and that is occasionally something is stolen and it needs to be returned to the rightful owner. Where does that happen? And so this is the spot where that happens as well. So it's just kind of trying to be functional and efficient with several functions that are happening throughout the day and throughout the month, and trying to aggregate that together so that, you know, we serve that function.
It sounds like a problem, or you'd have to have manpower at that door.
Well, it's by appointment. It's only by appointment. Every one of these things is by appointment. Nobody, if you show up, there's nobody there until you've made pre-arranged an appointment, and then an officer will meet you there. So that's an important concern, and we intentionally don't want to staff the position there.
Would there be some kind of a call button or something on that door as well if you don't
Right.
make an appointment? Because most people won't make appointments when they
Yeah.
come pick their buddy up.
Well, I think what happens is if you come to this and you don't have an appointment, you can ring the doorbell, but guess what it's going to ring? It's going to ring up here in records, and they'll say, there's nobody at that door, can you please come to the public entry of the building? So that can be managed. And then likewise, you know, they might have an appointment and they still show up at the public because they're used to that, and then they just get redirected here. So that function can happen, but look, you know, they're both facing the front, so it's not a big inconvenience.
I have another question. Looking at the diagram, I see a basic assumption that the police are always going to be able to have easy access to Midtown Road and North Peoria Street. Is there any access to Plank Road directly from the police station?
Yes, so Claudia, that diagram, Midtown Road you see there, it's not shown on this diagram, but the intention, and we're programming it for 2021, is to extend Midtown from Peoria to Plank to connect the two. So that will be a full extension.
So you're
connecting
not
both
boxed
of them.
in?
That's right. Yes.
Chief, did the officers on the committee go looking at these with you, or?
Yes, they did.
The committee, obviously, is myself, Deputy Chief Pishka, Sarah Raymond, who's our patrol commander, Detective Sergeant Hocking, obviously, to get the perspective of that division, Michelle Wagner, our records clerk, and then Amy Sines and Nick Biagioni, two of our veteran police officers. And so they've been with it since day one. We really took that team approach and input, and did the tours and brainstorming sessions, and, you know, everything you see up there is not, with all due respect, Dean heard all of the needs, and he put it down to paper with Angela, and so that's been very important. I think that everybody's had their input from all the divisions. Nick, for example, is also our vehicle maintenance officer, so he had that perspective. And then they took the concept plans back to the individual officers that aren't on the committee, and they were able to sit down with the officers and show them everything we've done so far, and then brought back a lot of input that we didn't get the first time, things that just it didn't occur to all of us, you know, where would we do car seat checks, because we do a ton of those. There was a lot of questions and things that came up, so you'll start seeing them in the future conceptual programs. So every division is well represented, and you know, we all went in and said, you can't be bashful, we don't want to do something and not do it right. So that's been a very good process.
If I can add to Chief's statement, one thing that Chief's highlighting that is not really being said here is how methodical this process really is. So, you know, it's not, everybody wants to know a number, right? Everybody wants to know how much is it going to cost us. Well, we don't know that. As Dean said, there's, you know, 3 major factors in determining that. And, you know, we're taking this methodical approach to understand all of these needs up front. You know, then next we'll go to the schematic design, and then we'll start developing those budget numbers. So, you know, everybody likes to jump ahead and try to understand, you know, what is the cost, can we afford it, all those things, but we really don't know that yet. So it's very important that we continue down the path of this methodical approach and get the feedback from the staff and feedback from the architects and have these working sessions in order to develop a really good product.
Anybody else? Anybody from the audience want to come up closer and look at it, that, you know, see anything? Anybody? Nobody? Anybody over here? Anything else?
Anybody from the police department? Come on, this is gonna be your building, now's the time to talk.
I'll just say, you know, by touring all the PDs that we went to, each place had something, like North Road, we liked the layout. Oswego, we liked their Sally Port. Glen Ellen, we liked their booking room. So we took little pieces of this police department to this one, and then we kind of tried to put it all in there. So hopefully, it'll come out perfect, just like we think it will. But each police department we went to, we took one little piece somewhere from someplace and put it into our place, so.
I'd agree with that, because I moved into a new building myself 2 years ago, and we went and toured a lot of buildings, architects did all the work, and employees got their input too. We changed a few walls and made it all work for us, but we got the building we wanted, so I'm sure you guys will get the building you want also.
The one in Glen Ellen, that's basically in a residential, right in the middle of a residential, bordered by a park on one side of it. But it's right in the middle there, and it fits in nice. Anybody else?
One other interesting, it's kind of funny, every place we walked into and got the tours, everybody said, you have no idea what we had before. And we said, yes, we do.
Well, we don't know when the building that you're in now was built. I've never seen that. We do know that it was remodeled in 1967, the last time that it was touched. We do know that we have many issues in that building, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
I do remember when you used to host a coffee club in that building.
Well, there wouldn't be room for them now, not with dispatch in there. We have officers in closets. We do. They're in closets. So, anybody else?
You mentioned dispatch. Is this something that IBRD would be moving into, or are they being not included in this plan?
Alderman, at this point, the concept that's up there does not include a regional communication center. Illinois Valley Regional Dispatch has talked about it, that board, and is considering all of the options that are available to them. Obviously, can IVRD go build a new facility freestanding? Can they afford to do that? Could IVRD approach the city and have discussions about tagging on to this building? Can IVRD locate other facilities that are out there, buildings, and renovate them? So at this point, those discussions are so preliminary. that we're proceeding as if they're not. That doesn't mean it couldn't be part of the discussion, and it very well may be part of the conversation, but not at this point.
Okay, one more time, anybody else?
How many acres is what we see up there? I know you're on 6 point something.
It's a little over 6.5, and that 6.5 includes 26th Street, the roadway, and the north-south road. So the site for the police station is around 5.5 acres.
So you don't have all that land that goes to.
We do not. There's an additional about 4.5 to 5 acres.
Is that gonna be available sometime?
I don't know, that would be a question for the property owner, but I would assume so.
Yeah, in the print, it's 6.527. So anybody else? Well, Dean and Matt and Angela, you guys did a good job, because there's not that many questions coming out there. Okay, I'll close that portion then. Thank you very much for coming. I'm gonna move right to the ordinances, resolutions. So Herb, do you wanna come up here, because we have the first three, it looks like have to do with you. You can, empty chair right there.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple... Okay, thanks, Dave. A couple ordinances for tonight. Some of them are housekeeping matters, really. Let me just look here which one you have first. Okay. As you all know, the council established the Peru Mall TIF district. So going forward, that TIF district is going to have to be administered. We administer your other TIF districts. There'll be annual reporting required, comptroller's reports, meetings with the other taxing bodies. Also, we'll be, at some point, we'll be negotiating redevelopment agreements with the developers of the property, tracking all the parcels in the tax increment. So the ordinance ahead of you just hires our firm to administer this TIF district, added to the other TIF districts that we are currently administering. TIF 1 is going to end. We're going to get to that shortly. So the ordinance would approve our contract. I think you all received a copy of it in the package. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it. I'm happy to answer them. It's on an annual basis. The state requires the comptroller that you have one TIF administrator for all your TIF districts.
Okay, so with that, do I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
I don't know if you have it or not. We
Authorize execution of professional services is written in red.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Have a roll call roll, please.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Waldorf. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Secondly, as you're aware, switching gears a little bit to the downtown TIF district, which you approved in January of this year. And if you recall, that TIF district had a number of parcels, because when you're dealing with downtown and then out to the west end, every parcel tax ID number is a separate property. So you see a lot of narrow lots, a lot of smaller lots. I think there was well over 500 parcels in that TIF district. One parcel that was included in that TIF district was sold unbeknownst to us when we adopted the ordinance, prior to us adopting the ordinance establishing the TIF. Therefore, we need to remove that parcel from the TIF district because it wasn't annexed into the city. The property owner split their property. The commercial building, the pole building, is remaining in the TIF district, but the residence, which is on the south side of Route 6, would be removed from the TIF district by this ordinance. It doesn't affect the contiguity of the TIF, really doesn't affect anything regarding the TIF. Typically, you don't do redevelopment agreements for residential property anyways. So, to satisfy the county's concerns, we're just adopting an ordinance removing that parcel, which is as a street address of 14 West US Highway 6, Peru, Illinois, a parcel number of 1718498000 from the TIF district.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance as written in red?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo. Motion approved. And lastly, we have an ordinance approving the termination of pre-tax increment financing district number 1. This is the TIF district that was established in 1995 to accommodate the Hy-Vee grocery store development and also all the related development that's occurred within that TIF district. Been a very successful TIF district. The city issued a bond, which has since been paid back to get the roadways and the utilities, water and sewer in that district. They were able to get Hy-Vee to locate there, which, as we all know, employs a lot of people, creates a lot of economic activity, creates a lot of sales tax for the city. It's really been a benefit. It's been a win-win. The taxing districts, when this TIF was established, agreed to defer some of their revenues until the city had enough increment to pay the bond back, and then they're getting paid back here at the end of the TIF, and the school district's going to catch up and receive what they thought they would have received. So this TIF actually ends December 31st, 2019, and we need an ordinance terminating that TIF. This will be filed with the county, and then all the taxing bodies are aware when they do their tax levies this year.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this ordinance as written and read? Where did the motion come from? And then the second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? There's one payout left, right, Herb?
The city will be receiving increment here when they get the second installment of the property taxes.
Right,
And then the city will use those funds, and they're pretty much going to, by the end of the year, the account will be closed out by the end of the year.
It'll be all-
And we'll work with Justin in doing that.
The TIF is finished 18, we're collecting 18 taxes, and then it's
In
finished.
18, yeah.
Once we pay that out. So I have a motion and a second, is there any other discussion? A roll call, quick call roll.
I will note that Alderman Payton arrived at 7:41. Do you have enough information to vote on this motion? Okay. Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Aye.
Motion approved.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you, Herb. Well, John, the next one's yours, you want to come up? Well, technically, you're the attorney for the client.
Right.
All the paperwork was done at Schweiker's law office. Anyway, what is this?
Yeah, we have an ordinance authorizing the execution of a purchase and development agreement between the city of Peru.
He's got it on hot all the time, so you don't have to...
Ordinance authorizing the execution of a purchase and development agreement by and between the City of Peru and Bernard T. Ernett and Patricia A. Ernett. And this involves the purchase of the future police station property, the 6.527 acres, as well as accepting the dedications of the Midtown Road extension and Plank Road widening.
So do I have a motion to approve this ordinance as written and read?
So moved.
Okay, do you have the numbers in front of you? What was the right-of-way that the Ernets turned over to the city on Midtown and Plank? Do you have those, access to those?
Mayor, I have the totals on each of those.
What are they?
So Midtown is 3.242 acres for the Midtown right-of-way. The Plank Road right-of-way is 2.520 acres. The police site, including the right-of-way, for the roadway to 26th and the north-south roadway is 6.527 acres. And if you all recall, previous to that, the Ernets also donated right-of-way for the North Peoria water main improvement and roadway expansion, and that total acreage was 13.187 acres. So in total, we've received 25.476 acres from the Ernets, of which approximately 22 of that has been donated to the city.
Any other questions on that? Okay, well, roll call, quick call roll.
We just want to thank your client, John, they have worked very well with the city for all the infrastructure improvements and now what I think will be a new public safety building. So we appreciate their willingness to work with the city, so pass that back to them, please.
And they would appreciate that, and they've done most of it in memory of their aunt and uncle.
Paula and Maria.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, call the roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Thanks, John. Next, we have
Thank you, John.
the minutes of a public hearing, petition of Catherine Despain concerning property located at 1408 26th Street, Peru.
Do we have a motion to receive the minutes and place on file?
So moved. Second.
A motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
Going along with that, we have an ordinance granting a variance under the zoning ordinance of the city of Peru, sought by the petition of Catherine Despain and Nancy S. Moen concerning property located at 1408 26th Street.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Have a roll call, call the roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Next, we have the minutes of a public hearing on petition of Jeffrey K. Turchi and Mary L. Turchi concerning property located at 926 25th Street in Peru.
Do you have a motion to receive the minutes placed on file?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
An ordinance granting a variance under the zoning ordinance of the city of Peru, sought by the petition of Jeffrey Turchi and Mary Turchi concerning property located at 926 25th Street, Peru.
Have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
So moved.
Where'd the second come from? Any discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
And we have minutes of public hearing on petition of Tyler Burris concerning property located at 1023 Monks Avenue in Peru.
Do we have a motion to receive the minutes and place on file?
I'll make the motion.
I will second it, Your Honor.
Discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
We have an ordinance granting a variance under the zoning ordinance of the city of Peru, sought by the petition of Tyler Burris concerning property located at 1023 Monks Avenue, Peru.
We have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Your Honor.
Have a motion and a second, discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
We have minutes of public hearing on petition of Douglas J. Butts and Alice E. Butts concerning property located at 732 11th Street, Peru.
We have a motion to receive the minutes and place on file.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
We have an ordinance granting a variance under the zoning ordinance of the city of Peru, sought by the petition of Douglas J. Butts and Alice E. Butts concerning property located at 732 11th Street, Peru.
We have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Next, we have minutes of public hearing on petition of Bruce Corti concerning property located at 14 East 10th Street, Peru.
Okay, we have a motion to receive the minutes and place on file.
I'll make the motion.
Second, Your Honor.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Next, we have an ordinance granting a variance under the zoning ordinance of the city of Peru, sought by the petition of Bruce Corti concerning property located at 14 East 10th Street, Peru.
Have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion? Have roll call, call the roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Next, we have an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by the addition of Chapter 102, Article 4, imposing a municipal cannabis retailer's occupation tax. And so this imposes the tax on the sale of recreational marijuana within the city of Peru at the maximum rate allowed under the new law, which is 3%. And
This is going to be on file with the Department of Revenue so that once the new law takes effect and we work through all the zoning changes through the committees and the Planning and Zoning Commission, that it's ready to go and we'll get our share of the tax revenue.
All right, now, all of this, by state statute, needs to be finished by September 20, I believe the date is?
Yeah, currently the statute, they're anticipating that there's going to be an amendment made, but currently they're saying by September of next year for it to take effect, January 1st.
But they wanted it on file in all the municipalities.
As soon as possible so that we don't miss out on anything.
Basically what it is we're allowed to charge 3%, and that's what we're doing on the marijuana. That's, if there is even, a place to buy recreational marijuana, because that's going to be an extremely competitive store to have, so have no idea if there's going to be one in Peru. Back when for the growers, we had quite a few people come in and talk to us interested in putting a growing facility, and that was very competitive, and none of them that put it in Peru received their permission to go ahead and build one. But so far to date, we haven't had anybody come in for the sale of recreational marijuana, so we'll see. But at any rate, we need this in place according to the state of Illinois. So we have a motion to approve the ordinance as written and read.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Planning and zoning was busy last Wednesday.
Sure was. We got another one with 4 coming up. 3 or 4.
Okay, now I'll go back and we'll start to go by what the agenda's telling us. Do we have a motion to receive the minutes and place on file?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Where does that come out, Alderman Buffalo? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Do we have a motion to receive the financial reports and place on file?
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. We have a motion to receive the activity reports in place on file.
So moved.
Second, Your Honor.
Alderman Payton, seconded by Alderman Ferrari. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to committee reports, Finance, Safety Services, Chairman Radke.
I have the numbers, Mayor. The city approved disbursements to be paid on 8/21 of 19, in a total of $2,770,702.38. Make a motion to place disbursements on file and pay the bills in the regular fashion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to receive the disbursements placed on file and pay the bills in the regular fashion. Is there any discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Next, Your Honor, I move that we approve a $25,000 payment to ES&G Leasing Incorporated for property acquisition for the North Peoria Street Improvement Project.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this payment to ES&G.
I'll second.
Who, Alderman Radke?
Second here, Your Honor.
Okay, you want to give a brief description of this, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is our last property acquisition that was necessary to move the North Peoria Street Improvement Project to construction. This is by far the largest acquisition of property for that development, or for that project. Most of the property acquisitions that were necessary were less than 1/10 of an acre. This is a little over a 1/2 acre.
Right, and his property was appraised at $80,000 through negotiations. We talked it down to $50,000, and then a 1/2 an acre is $25,000, so that's where the $25,000 number came from. But part of that purchase is for future North Peoria Street? Because this, right now, will go to 26,
So
correct?
part of that, no, it's, North Peoria will extend past Wenzel, so it's part of that improvement, of North Peoria is included, but we also had a property acquisition for when we prepare an extension of Wenzel Road to the west. So we wrapped that up in one acquisition.
Right, save from going back. So,
We'll approve this tonight, but, or we'll do an ordinance at our next meeting. So this will be approved tonight just to get the ball rolling, and then we'll ratify an ordinance at our next.
Doug has the information on the other acquisitions. Will they be all in one, or individual ordinances per parcel?
Yeah, we've been working in negotiation.
Understood.
what was in the basket? I just gave
Right,
that information
yeah.
in the basket, so.
Yes, sir. Yeah, lots of foreigners.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll have a roll call, quick call the roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
The only other report, Your Honor, at the Finance Committee meeting, we are starting to look at more of a long-term financial plan. Justin Miller is preparing that. And we're also starting to review as a committee all the financial policies that we put in place. So the purchasing policy or reserve policies, just to make sure those are all up to date and codified in city ordinance. So as we review those, we'll bring those to the city council for debate and approval in ordinance fashion at some point in the future over the next several months. Unless Chief Burnaby or Chief King has anything, that's the only report we have at this time.
All right, move on to public services, Chairman Waldorf absent, Alderman Lukosius?
Yes, Alderman Ferrari, you take the first one.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city engineer to seek bids for construction of the parking lot in 1902 4th Street. It's across the street from here.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to seek bids for construction of the parking lot at 1902 4th Street. Is there any discussion? You want to say a couple things about it, Eric?
Yeah, we're currently looking to finish wrapping up the details of the plan sometime this week, so we'll advertise probably next week for the project. I would anticipate that the project will be completed before the winter months, so sometime before mid-November. In all, the project allows for about 13 to 14 parking stalls and a handicap parking stall, so about 15 stalls in total. We will add some decorative features to the perimeter of the parking lot, just in the form of a fence, some decorative fencing and some pillars, and then your standard landscape areas.
Will concrete be considered in for the parking lot?
Yeah, we're considering both options currently, so concrete and asphalt. Most likely, we will bid it with an alternate option, unless some of our research here in this final hours determines that concrete is a good option, then most likely we'll spec concrete.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think when this parking lot is built, it'll look a lot nicer and be a lot less trouble than the previous building that was there. And the tenants that it brought. And also, this is being done to try to eliminate, we have a really nice restaurant at Stone Jug. He's very busy all the time, which is great for him and great for our city. But it's presented a little bit of a parking problem that some of the residential streets south of there have a lot of parking on these.
It's generated a lot of street parking.
Yeah, and so it's taking up all the off-street parking, which is causing some inconvenience for the residents. So hopefully this parking lot will pull some of those cars off the street and get them in this parking lot and let the residents use that parking for their own needs.
Anybody else? A roll call, quick call the roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city engineer to seek bids for repaving of city cemetery roads.
Second, Your Honor.
Okay, a little insight on that is we received from the estate of Anita Copeland. We received two $100,000 from her estate for, earmarked for the cemetery. We've been looking at repaving the roads for quite some time now. As you may remember, may or may not remember, that we've invested quite a bit of money in the mausoleum. The mausoleum is beautiful now. Funeral directors are using it for the last rites, and then, you know, to stay out of the weather, the heat, the cold, the rain, the snow, the wind, what have you. And they really like the facility. The facility's very nice now, so then the next in line were the streets. So it looks like we'll be paving the cemetery roads in the streets, and then we're also going to go into naming the roads, because the clerk's office receives quite a few inquiries on where is it at, and it's hard to describe it without roads being named. So we'll be naming the roads in the cemetery.
Most of you will be surprised to learn, as I was, in that small footprint that we have there for the cemetery. There's just shy of 7,000 feet of roadway, which is a little over a mile. It's about 1.25 miles. So there's quite a bit of internal roadway.
And then also we're looking, this won't be any of expansion, but we're looking at expansion of cemetery, because quite frankly, we're running out of room at the present rate that we're having burials up there. And the city already owns 15 some odd acres to the west, directly west, north of the mausoleum, well, directly west of the mausoleum, plus a little bit north of the mausoleum. So we're looking at, we don't know the number yet, but it appears to be in the 5 acre or so range, that we would extend roads out and make more space. So anyway, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Have a roll call, quick call roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Prokosius.
Aye.
Bradkey.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Lastly, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city engineer to negotiate a contract with H.R. Green for Phase 3 construction engineering for the Unitite Drive Pisces 1 project.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, to add to this, this is part of our federal freight grant program. If you all remember, this is a pass-through grant from Federal Highway to the DOT. We applied for this grant and were awarded the grant. It's part of the parameters of the grant and Federal Highway's requirements. They require a qualification-based selection. And during that process, we had a 5-person panel evaluate the submittals, and H.R. Green averaged the highest score of those submittals. So the next process is to move forward with negotiating a contract. If we cannot come to an agreement on the contract, we will move to the next person that's ranked on that submittal list.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call, clerk call roll.
Alderman Ferrari.
Aye.
Prokosius.
Aye.
Bradkey.
Aye.
Payton.
Aye.
Ballard.
Aye.
Buffalo.
Motion approved.
Chief, you have anything else for public services that you want to bring up? That's it, Your Honor.
That's it. Proclamations, we have none.
No, Your Honor.
Anybody unfinished business? None. Anybody new business? No new business. The car show, and the people came out once the scare and the sun came out. The people came out. There was quite a few at the park later on, but it was a little bit sparse to begin with. So.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Public Works Department on that on behalf of the CSO. The park looked beautiful and accommodations were good.
Okay. Petitions, communications, do we have anything?
Yes, Your Honor, I had one late communication come in. Jim Happ, seeking a variance for the construction of an accessory structure at 902 14th Street.
Okay, do we have a motion to receive the correspondence, place on file, and turn over to planning zoning for review and their recommendation?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Any others that came in?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Public comment, anybody? Public comment? Nothing about the police station? Nothing? Donnie, Frank, Sam, nobody?
I'll ask a question.
Yes, Mike?
Since you passed the ordinance tonight for the 3% that you can collect in the marijuana, does that mean that the city has to approve or under home rule an ordinance to allow it to be sold in the city?
All the guidelines are in place now. I think that was enough for all the guidelines. What the state's asking for right now, there'll be more. If somebody comes to town, there'll be more for approval of it.
It would still need to be an approved designated thing for, under the zoning ordinance as well. So we're reviewing that in committee and with the Planning and Zoning Commission to designate which of these cannabis establishments will be allowed where, otherwise they're not an approved use under the zoning ordinance and would be denied.
It appears B4, in the B4 area, but then you have buffer zones. You have 1,500-foot buffer zone with schools, you have a 1,000-foot buffer zone with, what are some residential areas, and it's going to be pretty difficult to have anything in the downtown area because of where churches are, where schools are. It's going to be pretty difficult. It looks like B4 goes all the way out to the west end on the new property that we've annexed in the last year and a half, and it's going to be kind of tough. If you go to Morris, they have the medicinal marijuana, which is all the way out on Route 6 by the golf course, across the street, the old Rockwell Inn. You know, and I don't know what their ordinance says, you know, as far as where it can be, but that's where it ended up in Morris, so it's out in basically the middle of nowhere. But once again, we don't have anybody that has inquired about putting one here. It's really, the state has quite a bit of work to do before anything happens as far as that goes, so. But this is one of the requirements, was the 3%, you might as well put 3% on the marijuana, so we did.
Is there medical in LaSalle County? Is there one in Ottawa, or is there not?
There is.
There's a medicinal.
Medical dispensary. So, my understanding is the state has some pretty lofty financial requirements for a person that would want to open a recreational dispensary.
That's my understanding as well.
There's a certain amount of net assets that are required to
I
be,
believe it's $1.5 million in net worth, and then it's a $100,000 non-refundable like application fee. So I believe that the medical marijuana place in Ottawa would probably get first billing for getting the recreational permit as well.
yeah, so I don't think you'll see, based on the financial requirement, I don't think you'll see a lot of recreational marijuana dispensaries that open, because it's gonna be very expensive to open one.
For now, I mean, it might be amended in the future, but.
Anybody else? Okay, I need to ask for a motion to go in closed session for what's number 3 on the list. Clerk Bartley, could you read what number 3 is?
Yes, Your Honor. Looking for a motion for the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body being considered, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired or whether the public body is considering setting the price for the sale or lease of its property.
Okay, we have a motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Have a roll call, clerk call roll.
Alderman Ferrari. Aye. Lukosius.
Aye.
Radke. Payton. Ballard. Buffo.
Motion approved. Chris, have you talked to the car wash? He has a private contract that they're doing stuff.
It's, the silk, something with the silk.
Is it really?